Chaim l'chaim. I'd like to hear from people tonight about Divrei Hayomim Ha'heim and all of the tremendous emotions that were there and the significance of the things that happened from Shmini Atzeres Tov Lamed Ches until Rosh Chodesh Kislev. I personally can say it had a very deep impact on Hoshana Rabbah Nacht, Tovshin Lamed Tes, when I was here. I was not here in Tovshin Lamed Ches. Lamed Tes. And my teacher, friend, Yedid Rabbi Krinsky, offered me a lift. I was going to my Mocham Achsanya, Lamed Tes Chalamai Tzukis. And so it was a 2-minute ride, and so we had a couple of minutes together, and Rabbi Krinsky shared with me, he said the next 48 hours, 72 hours, we're so concerned about. It was a year afterwards. It was Vayashana, about Hakofis, about the physical pressures that would be on the Rebbe in that occasion. So it's something which had a tremendous impact on anybody who was there. I'll never forget that. Sitting in the car, I wasn't here. We in England, we heard about Tovshin Lamed Ches. I got a phone call from Rabbi Vogel. It must have been about 2 o'clock in the morning. Motzi Simchas Torah. And I was, by some fluke, I was in bed already. And we heard this, so I went to Lubavitch's house, and we were there maybe 5-10 people, and we made Bezdin, and we made signs and put up in all the shuls, Mizol Davenin, and we sat there the whole night. No one could go do anything else. And suddenly, they said the Rebbe is going to speak. So we took the 5-10 people who were there, divided up the tzach list. Everybody took a page and called up, and everybody came. It was about 3-4 o'clock in the morning. Everyone came to hear the sikha. So the people who are in New York, in a sense, they had a much bigger the impact. They were there when it happened, and with all of the fear, we came at the second stage. So I'm not going to speak about what happened then and the tremendous simcha that we all have, but just a few words. I want to share with you what happened, and I went to Miami for Rosh Chodesh Kislev to Farbrengs. It was probably about 15 years ago, maybe. There was a bacher, a shaliach, Shmuel Gans, and he organized, not just for the yeshiva, he organized a major event for hundreds and hundreds of people in a shul there for Rosh Chodesh Kislev, including a doctor who was actually there on Shmini Atzeres. There were the various speakers, and I was one of them. I'll tell you in a minute what we heard from the doctor. But I want to first tell you something that happened on the way to Miami. I was on a plane. I probably came from London by way of New York. I don't recall exactly, but I think it was a plane, an American plane ride. And on the plane, I noticed a very elegant-looking person. He looked like a Litvische person. A very beautiful, straight, trimmed, white beard. Looked like an elderly person, over 70 for sure, with a black suit, and looked very stateshna, they say, very put together. And there was no communication between us during this flight. But when we landed and we're getting the baggage, and we had to wait a while for the baggage didn't come so quickly. So he told me, I'm coming here. I'm from New York, and I'm coming here for a bar mitzvah of a grandson or a great-grandson, for some family occasion. Where are you from? Shalom Aleichem. Where are you from, and what brings you to Florida? I said, I'm from England. I'm American-born, but I'm a shaliach in England. And I'm coming here. There's going to be a big celebration for Rosh Chodesh Kislev tonight. So he says, what kind of yontif is Rosh Chodesh Kislev? And what raced through my mind in that second, I was thinking for a second, what am I going to explain to a person 10, 15 years after Gimel Tammuz? I'm going to tell him the Rebbe became gesund. How is that person? So I was just, it's all in a second, how to answer the question. And I decided I'll tell him. I said, it's the day that the Lubavitcher Rebbe recovered enough to go home after a serious heart attack on Shmini Atzeres Tafshin Lamed Ches. So he said to me, B'zeh HaLoshen, a Yom Tiv of the Lubavitcher Rebbe is a Yom Tiv of Klal Yisrael. Those were the exact words that he said. And I said to him, what do you know about the Lubavitcher Rebbe? He said, I was in Yechidus once. And he told me that he was actually, I think, a refugee. We came after the war, and he was in the Mira Yeshiva. He was his whole life in the Mira Yeshiva. He actually was in the administrative staff there. And he came, and in yeshiva, there's no family, no anything, so the yeshiva, that's your circle, is the yeshiva bachrin. And he got engaged, and this is in the Tafshin Yuds, in the 1950s. Everyone knew that the Rebbe is a great tzaddik, and he told his scholar that we should go in and get a bracha from the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And she was happy. So he was in the yeshiva, and he said to them, I have an appointment next week. I'm going to go to get a bracha for my chasana with my kala by the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And he says, all my chavedim told me, don't go. Don't go. I'm warning you not to go. So he said, why shouldn't I go? They said, I guarantee you, he's going to tell you to learn Tanya. What do you need it for? He's a gadol, and he'll tell you to do it. You're going to have to listen. So don't go, because that's what he's going to tell you. So he said, the bracha of a tzaddik is very choshev to me. And he went with his scholar, and the Rebbe told him a word, why you say, I asked him to tell me something from the Yechidus. He said that the Rebbe told him about why you use the expression binyan adayad, because the chasana is negeya al doiris, the way you prepare for a chasana. And also the Rebbe said, every day you should learn some mussar. And the next morning he came to the yeshiva, and everybody was like a little smile, little smirk. Yeah, you went? Yeah. Now what did he tell you? So he says, the Rebbe told me that every day I should, and the smile's getting a little bit bigger as he says it, every day I should learn mussar. And they said, wow. And suddenly, I knew it myself in my previous yeshiva. I was in Torah Das. A lot of Bachrim went into Yechidus. There were certain people, myself included, that the Rebbe said, to learn every day at least 10, 15 minutes Chassidus. That was my first Yechidus, Chai Odo Tovshin Yud Zayin. But a lot of classmates of mine went in. The Rebbe told them to learn Musa every day, to learn something of Yiddish Shemayim every day. And the Rebbe is a Rebbe. He works out what's right for each person's neshama. The reason I tell this story is because if you ask yourself a question in Tam V'das, you want to understand what is the significance of Rosh Chodesh Kislev, especially after Gimel Tammuz? What are you commemorating? So I would have thought of various answers, which I'll tell you at least one of them in a minute. But I thought that this man encapsulated the whole thing. A Yom Tov for Lubavitcher Rebbe is a Yom Tov for Klal Yisrael. What he meant is that the Rebbe's work and the Rebbe's words and the Rebbe's vision and the Rebbe's Torah and the Rebbe's Hadrocha to the whole generation, not talking about the inner crowd, that we are Baruch Hashem in that inner crowd. I'm talking about the impact of the Rebbe even then, today for sure, in people who admire, even if they might have questions or whatever it happens to be, everyone sees something about how to go forward at this stage of history and how to bring Geula to the world. Everyone sees it in the world. And he said, a Yom Tov for the Lubavitcher Rebbe is Yom Tov for Klal Yisrael. I would say, if somebody would ask me, before I heard this from him, he set me right. If you look at the things that happened in the 14 years after Gimel Tammuz, in the Rebbe's Nesius, besides that there were, I didn't know any arithmetic, but I'm sure there were 500 Farbrengens, probably, and Sichos like in the later years. I'm sure there were about 700 Likutei Sichos that came out. The Maimorim Mugoyim of the Rebbe that we learn and misamek in them, and delve into these Maimorim, probably, I didn't do the calculation of the statistic, but I would imagine about 90% or close to it of those Maimorim Mugoyim were from after Lamed Ches, starting Mem Zayin maybe. The exponential building of Chabad houses, which started with a trajectory which is going to this day, but whatever is happening today was really, it was beginning then, and the Rebbe was showing us what we have to do. Especially from Tovshin Mem Zayin and Tovshin Mem Tes, these are all after Lamed Ches. And I'm sure everybody heard of an organization called Tzivos Hashem. That was after Lamed Ches. The Shir HaRambam, that the incredible gift that the Rebbe gave us, the Zuchos, to learn the Rambam and to have his kashrus through it, that was in Mem Dalet. And you could make a list of many, many other things. The Rebbe met more people in Yechidus in the 6 years when he gave dollars on a Sunday, probably, than all the previous years combined. Maybe he met 1 million people. Make a cheshbon. There was thousands of people every Sunday. A quiet Sunday would be 6,000, 7,000 people. Yud Shvat Tovshin Nun, they said there were about 12,000 that went by, got a Tanya. And most of the people who came, there were many people who came regularly, but most of them came the first time. There was tremendous mitzvah being done at those dollars. All those things that were happening. So, Rosh Chodesh Kislev in Tam V'das, but in a deeper level, I think it's accurate to say a Yom Tov from the Lubavitcher Rebbe is a Yom Tov for Klal Yisrael. Just that fact in itself, that leadership was there, and it's accessible to everyone today. The televised Farbrengens, I think they started in the 80s, no? So that was also after Lamed Ches. The whole idea you have today, the Reichkeit, the first time in history. After Lamed Ches, Rabbi Krinsky Shlita confirms the televised, all these clips that you see, all these Farbrengs that come out today. This is all from those years. That's in Talmud Das. You say if you need a reason. It's also a beautiful thing because it's a Yom Tov which was created by Chassidim. And I think, if I'm allowed to say it, Ulay Yesh Lema, that the Rebbe had a special chavivus, a special love for this day because it was created by the Chassidim. The whole Kinnis HaShluchim was made to center around Rosh Chodesh Kislev. How the Rebbetzin appreciated it, how the Rebbe appreciated it. It showed the collective appreciation of everything that the Rebbe represents by all of the Hasidim. Now, when I went to that Farbrengen in Miami, I said, I'll tell you something. A few Rabbi Shapiro spoke, different people spoke, besides myself. But one of the people who spoke was the doctor. And you've seen different videos. This was Dr. Wunsch, I think, who was there, the first doctor there. And what he spoke about to a crowd which was plenty of, there were Bachim, there was the Balabatim, and plenty of not Chabad people there too. He described from the medical perspective what happens when somebody has a heart attack, especially a very severe one. And he said the reflex that kicks in a person, a reflex is like something you cannot hold back. Like if you tried not to breathe, it's not possible. There's a reflex that makes you breathe. The reflex that happens when a person suffers till the Rebbe is upheaten, that kind of a thing is a total concentration on their survival. The whole body and the whole mind and the whole being is focused on one thing, to be able to survive. And he said it was something which was mind-boggling. Here was a person that the Rebbe, he went to Hakofa. He didn't want to do anything before everyone went home. He was concerned about the Simchas Yom Tov for the families that were there, that no one should be upset. His thought, and the doctor said that he learned a lesson in what leadership is really all about. So I want to say l'chaim, and just say what the thought that I have about Rosh Chodesh Kislev is that Baruch Hashem, Ashreinu Matov Chalkeinu, that we had a Rebbe who was perfect. What does that mean? Every Rebbe is perfect. The Frierdiker Rabbeim were also. But the Rebbe was in such a difficult generation. He took over in such a key moment, in such a challenging moment. Anyone who knows or who remembers from what happened in the late 40s and the 50s, what the Rebbe did. And he was totally focused on the people. There was no moment we took it for granted. The sun rises, the sun sets, the Rebbe is there for davening, there's a Farbrengen Shabbos, all the different occasions, one could take it for granted. But this was a tremendous, in Gashmias, this was a tremendous Mesiras Nefesh that was required from the Rebbe. So what does that mean to me? The Rebbe once told, I think it was Rabbi Abba Pliskin, that he would Farbrengs with Bochum in Yeshiva. And the Rebbe said, besides telling stories of Rabbeim, you should also tell stories of Chassidim. Why? Because a Rebbe is born with special koiches. Of course, he had to work in order to bring them out. But he has a potential that the average person doesn't have. Chassidim, they're great, but they got it without that special koyach. So you should tell stories of Chassidim and people might identify with. So I want to say just on our level as Chassidim, as wannabe Chassidim, we want to become closer to the Rebbe, to learn how the Rebbe was misgabe, how he overpowered the different forces of nature and the different environmental factors which would be expected to make what he had to do impossible. So in my own life, it's nowhere near the same thing, but it means, to a certain extent, being ready to transcend our immediate needs or plans, expectations, and to be able to go out of our comfort zone on some level. That bittul, that is the nekuda which is in all of the Rebbe's being and in all the Rebbe's teachings, up to the Maimah V'ata Tetzaveh, about not being subject to what the environment says. So l'chaim, the Rebbe will help in that we should appreciate this Yom Tiv, freien sich, we should be happy with it, and try to think of a way that we could take another step towards being what we ourselves can be, each of us can be. L'chaim.